So, ready?
Ready.
Awesome. Cool. Let me see. Magic should be happening now. Cool. Yes, we are live. So, welcome everyone to the amazing Twitch stream channel. I'm very excited to be joined by Jess or Jessica?
My mom had 3 girls with 3-syllable J names, so I'll answer to anything. Jess, Jessica, Jessie. It's what suits you best.
Okay, let's go with Jess. So we'll just maybe do a bit of small talk and wait for more people to join. But the idea today is just to talk a little bit about the coding journey, how to go from having no coding experience, no technical background, to potentially landing your first developer gig. So I'll be able to talk about that like firsthand because I have traveled that journey. And maybe Jess, maybe it will be a good time for you to introduce yourself.
Oh, heck, of course. Sorry, I've been locked in my house and only talking to my husband for a week or so. And I forgot that I don't know everybody I'm talking to. Hi, I'm Jessica Rose. I'm also a self-taught technologist. I do have a university degree, but it's in English, which was pretty useful.
Me too.
All the cool kids. I don't sound like it accent-wise, but I'm based out here in the UK, and I do a lot of sort of nonprofit and outreach work. So I get to talk to a lot of folks who are interested in becoming developers, interested in getting into tech, have a lot of sort of perspectives filtered through them.
Yeah, and you also have like a huge Twitter following, and I think like people really appreciate like your community work, how you kind of connect people with their jobs and how you give advice to beginners and women and bootcamps and internships, and that's also how I got to kind of meet you. It's fantastic that you were able to join us because I think it's gonna be just like a cool perspective as well. So let's start with just a couple of questions. So if you were to, let's say that someone approaches you today and says,
I mean, digitally, not in person.
Oh no, but so let's say that that someone would approach you and say, I want to become a developer in 6 months or in a year. I have no coding background. What do I do? Where do I start?
Fab. So this is really exciting because I get this question a lot, and it's very rarely I have 0 coding experience. It's more often like, hey, I've tried some tutorials and I've stopped and I've started, I've stopped and started again, which is super normal. Just put that out there.
Yes.
And it's like, what can I do to really push past this?
Yeah.
And we've got a bunch of different options. So there are formal academic routes you could take. So in the United Kingdom, parts of Europe, only recently in the US as well, there are master's programs in computer science designed for folks who don't have a computer science background.
Yeah.
I was really excited to see Penn University is offering one of these all online for about 10 grand, but 10 grand is still silly money.
Yeah.
Some folks do like to go the bootcamp route. An in-person bootcamp can take anywhere from 9, 10, 16 weeks, I think is the most common, but can run as long as 6 months or even a year long if you're looking at things like the Ada Academy. The challenge here is none of those are accredited. Some of them are really, really high quality, and some of them are expensive garbage. If any of you are watching this because you've seen an advert for the Lambda School where you could pay $30,000 for not especially high quality education, I might really lovingly steer you at something higher quality that doesn't cost that much. At the most expensive in USD, I'd expect to see a bootcamp costing $10, $15, maybe $20,000, but 30 is outrageous and you should be outraged.
And it's also, like you mentioned bootcamps, then there's also obviously you can have a computer science degree, but there's also options nowadays to go completely zero budget, almost
Yeah.
self-taught
I
route.
mean, zero, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, which is what I did.
Oh,
Yes, so
how did you do
mine,
it?
right. So I was working in quite a boring e-commerce job, which was just not very satisfying. And I went to a Jungle Girls workshop just because, I don't know, it sounded cool. And the closest, so back then we were living in the UK, in Milton Keynes. And we were looking for like, where could I get like a taster? What is this programming thing? Can I do it? So we heard about this Jungle Girls workshop. Actually, my sister, who is a doctor, told me about it. So we flew to Belfast, and I went there.
As one does.
As one does, because you know it's a good excuse. Like, let's go to Belfast, and also let's go to this Jungle Girls workshop. So we went there, and it was like a Saturday whole day thing, and it was just amazing. Like, it was the first time that I like opened a terminal and
It's
under
scary, isn't it?
supervision. It is very, you know, the black screen and everything. So we did that. Then we're like, oh, this is amazing. People are so kind. And why are they volunteering on a Saturday morning? And there were cupcakes. So we thought we should do something like that back in Milton Keynes, and like maybe look into, as organizers, facilitators, look into establishing this kind of community. And then through that, I got to meet a couple of really cool coaches. And then some months later, I just cold turkey quit my job and told my wife,
How did that feel?
well, she had a job, that helped. so that helped. But I said, okay, look, I will try for 1 year. If in 1 year I can't make any money out of this thing, I will go back to whatever I can do, I know already I can do and I can get paid for. But give me 1 year and I will study, I will figure it out. I won't go, but like I will just be minimalistic. And that's what I did. So I went online, I checked for tutorials, what languages should I look into. I started with Python, because I heard it's like a very beginner friendly language. And then beginner mistake was jumping from one thing to the other, bookmarking this, bookmarking that.
So I might politely argue with you. I talk to a lot of folks who do this, and I rarely think this is a mistake. So I'll talk to somebody I'll often talk to folks who've been sort of self-teaching for 2 or 3 or 6 months, and they say, oh, I tried a bunch of HTML, and then I tried a bunch of Python, then I tried a bunch of, and like, I don't think it's a terrible thing to bounce around a little bit as you're trying to learn what you love.
And your mistake maybe is putting it too harshly, because as a beginner, you have no idea, right? You don't know what you're supposed to know. You don't know what is the path you're supposed to follow. So maybe it's just because I feel that I got too overwhelmed maybe, and there were like too many moments of, there's too much, it's too quick, I can't figure it out, there's no way, people are way ahead of me. So that was maybe what was like not beneficial to me, because like once I kind of zoomed into like a path, it became easier. So I very quickly discovered Free Code Camp, and I just love the idea. I love how it's free, the community behind it, and the whole meetup. Like they also like encourage you to just have a meetup around the Free Code Camp curriculum and discuss that. So that's how we kind of focused also, like, look, let's just solve Free Code Camp problems together. So
yeah. I
would learn something, and then the next week I would teach someone that, and then like someone else would teach it. And that was,
which is just the best way to learn. Like I used to be a teacher, so I'm such a bully, but I'm like, oh gosh, if you really want to clarify something in your own mind, teaching it one of those amazing ways to do it.
Yeah. And I also think I learned so much faster, just because I was able to like reinforce all the knowledge that I learned, because sometimes you learn and you kind of understand it, but then once you're forced to teaching it to someone and like they expose,
and build on that.
And they're like, okay, but why did you do that? But what does that mean? You're like, oh, maybe I don't really understand that, so I should go back and look into it. So that definitely was for me the way to go. So like learning and teaching immediately, like exposing kind of the gaps in your knowledge. Also like just going full like meetup route. So we had like meetups twice a month. where there would be like lots of coaches, and I would just be like, oh, like if there was a Python expert, I would ask them about Python. If there was someone talking about Ruby, I'd be like, oh, but what does it do? What? Like I was just trying to absorb as much as I could. And yeah, so I did that for maybe like 6 months or a bit more. Then I kind of like started doing, because you know I did have that pending promise of 1 year, make money, otherwise everything will go. So I started kind of putting myself out there and like I can do some basic CSS tweaks for you.
So I've got a question for you is, did you feel ready to work as a developer when you first started applying for work?
Yes, that is an excellent question, because I don't think you ever feel ready, but I was blessed with some sort of confidence that's like...
no, it's perfect.
No, it's like, it's okay if you say no. I just would not, I want to be the person that asks, and not like I fear kind of regret of not doing it more than the rejection. So I would just be, you know, sending applications, or like even saying, because I didn't know what I was capable of, and I didn't know what people wanted me to do.
Yeah.
Because like things are so vague and you have no idea. And then also you like, oh, but even senior developers Google, I can Google, so I should be able to figure it out. And then also I had that kind of support network of coaches. So thinking like, if I have zero idea, I would just ask someone like, okay, they want me to do this. Where should I start? What can I do? So yeah, that also like, so I did a couple of like tweaking WordPress websites type of gigs, which were, you know, like not super financially, I don't know, but like it gave me the, like, oh, this could be something quite early on. And I think that's important that you get that validation somehow, like especially when you're self-taught, that something has to, like some sort of positive feedback, that it's not just like I'm doing this tutorial and building that, but like in real world, what proof do I have that I'm doing a good job? Which in my case also I had a wife telling me, yes, Eva, you're super smart, which also helps, I must say. Because like there are days when you're like, like I can't compete with 22-year-old like grads, or I can't, like, it doesn't work like that anymore. But yeah.
I love that. Oh.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
I love that you were getting the advice that I give people really regularly, which is you're never going to feel ready to apply for that first job.
Yeah.
Apply way before you think you're ready, and just let people tell you no.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you went in and did exactly what I would have recommended.
Yeah. Well, but so before applying for a job, so like I felt that because I didn't do the bootcamp or I didn't have the degree, I thought I needed like practical experience. Like I thought I have the tutorial land stuff in my head, but I don't know how to work in a team. I don't know, like, you know, like you would look for a job application and they would say, oh, you have to be amazing at Git and team communication and like tickets. And I'm like, what do I do with that?
So I'm going to tell all of you a secret, which is not a secret because I tell everybody this, but you can very safely ignore between 50 and 80% of the bullet points in a job description. Wow. And I know this sounds scary. You're going to apply to a lot of places and won't get back to you. Just pay attention to what the top line says. Like, hey, we're looking for a JavaScript dev. We're looking for a front-end JavaScript dev. Cool. And then when they start asking for ridiculous things in the bullet points, be like, oh, must be great at Photoshop or must be good at... You can ignore those. Like those, like, they wrote that job description by committee, or that was just like what the last guy could do. And like now that Fred's left his job, they want to see if they can find the same thing.
But cheaper. Yeah.
And like oftentimes you can, and especially these days, oftentimes you can ignore location. Right now, everybody who can work remote is working remote.
Yeah.
And I think the question of like starting remote as a junior in your first job is an interesting question. It's challenging to find a place that'll support that well.
Yes. And that was because, so for me, so my wife is a diplomat. And meaning...
Oh, that's well fancy.
I know. Did you see my plans? So So I knew that I wanted a job that I could work remotely. So that's also one of the reasons I looked for to start in a tech career. So I also was like looking for a remote gig, and I kept getting the feedback of no, but as a junior, you need to be surrounded by 10 professionals who will prevent you from deleting everything, and like you need counsel of seniors. But I did actually get a remote gig at the end, like but I will talk about it a bit in a bit. Before that, I wanted to just say that so after I had like all this theoretical knowledge, I thought I needed like a real kind of project experience, and that's when I found out about this Rails Girls Summer of Code, which is what we had a stream about that last week, and so that is like a paid internship for women and non-binary folks to get like a 3-month open source project experience. And yeah, I did that. So that would be like almost 2 years ago. And it was fantastic because then I did get to work in a team. I did get to learn, Git and GitHub and Git conflicts and all this stuff and databases and things like, oh, like my code is now live. It's not just a little portfolio sitting somewhere that no one is ever going to see. Is actually being used. So that was like a great experience also for me.
I think we've actually maybe got a question going back to our short discussion about.
Oh, of course, yes, questions
posting.
are good. Yes.
And it's a really good question. And they're asking, hey, what's good to look for? What are sort of green flags, as it were, for job postings? Saying like sometimes there are just so many people looking for developers right now or looking for technologists.
Yeah.
But this person doesn't know how to prioritize which ones they want to apply to. What did you look for in your hunt?
Right. So I was looking for a remote junior developer, front end or web developer position, meaning something CSS, HTML, JavaScript, and React. So that was kind of my stack. And then I thought like if that's kind of the main thing, I can always learn other technologies. So like if there's Node or databases, I can handle that. But that was kind of my stack, which is quite a popular stack today. So React is super, super popular. So for me, I was looking for, so I would always go and kind of research the company as well, see like how it feels, like what the company is doing, what the product is. I also felt like for me that it would be beneficial to work in a smaller company so that I would be exposed to more things and learn more. And also, so what I actually, so the company that I'm working for now, they had in their, like they had a really good job application. So it said, first of all, okay, these are technologies that you should be familiar with, but if you're not, like there will be on-job support. You just need to be curious.
That's calming.
Yeah, like you need to be curious, eager to learn, but there's gonna be, mentorship is very important. I was like, mentorship, yes. So that, like, for me, that was really, really good signal. Yeah, also remote. What else? I'm trying to think of what else there was. But I think sometimes as a junior also, like everyone tells you, your first job maybe is not that important. You just need to get it, and then it's much easier to get from the first job to your next job. So sometimes the advice that you would get is like, look, you can do it, just get the job. And then once you have the experience and the reference, perhaps it will be easier than coming from zero, like internship or like your own coding. Like I think the first job is the most difficult to get. So maybe sometimes,
I'd agree,
yeah, it's difficult to be very picky, perhaps.
So far as what to look for in a job description, like my sort of green flags are folks who talk about what they're going to do for you as a candidate. When I say, ignore all of the silly bullet points, I think that if you find a job description that doesn't have ridiculous bullet points, they read it almost like a narrative. Does it sound like they know what they're talking about? Does it sound like they're approaching this hiring in a reasonable way? That's rare. An additional warning is that almost every day is bad hiring.
Okay.
Things that have feelings that aren't great. You're going to apply for things and never hear back, or you're going to interview and then they go quiet. that's not like, nobody hates you, I hope. Nobody's trying to make you feel bad. Everybody's just really bad at hiring.
Yeah.
So it's not you, it's them. And then just look for things that make sense to you. Say, hey, are they talking about mentorship? Are they talking about the support you would get?
Yeah.
Really just read it as though they're applying to you almost. To say, okay, they've talked about the company a little bit. Do I like what they do? And I think I'd agree with you really strongly. The getting your first job in tech really sucks. Or it can really suck. I do meet some folks who just do it right away.
Yeah.
We're coming into especially uncertain times. So I would say if you're looking to make a change like this, don't necessarily quit your job right now if you can help it. But be prepared for the job hunt to be really challenging, potentially quite a bit more so now. The advice I generally give is that looking for your second job in tech is about 70% easier than looking for your first job in tech. And looking for your third job in tech outside of apocalypse environments, generally folks will like message you and try and get you to work with them.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see hiring be a little slower over the next unknowable amount of time. So I think everybody's going to be a bit more conservative. During this period, you all should be more conservative too in making sure you're making the best choices for yourselves.
Yeah. No, that is good advice. And I see we have another question, and someone is asking about how to start building the portfolio, what sort of projects they should be looking to do. I think that's an excellent question. Yeah. I think, so I approached it as a front-end developer, which is like, we kind of have an advantage because like everything's so visual and you can just like put websites and projects, and it's more difficult if you like working back-end. So yeah, for me, what I wanted to always showcase in my portfolio was that I was sort of not all over the shop. So that I was following a path of like, okay, so I'm a front-end developer. I can do like JavaScript stuff. I can do some designy stuff. I can do React stuff. So I don't know, like people always try to do like the to-do list or Pomodoro timer or something like that. But I think even more, like even cooler is if you do something that you came up with, even if it's simple, even if it's like, I've seen on Free Code Camp, like even just simple, what's the weather like in your, like where you live, can be really, really cool, like with the details that you bring, with the colors, the design. So like it doesn't, the project itself, like it can be very simple, but you can bring, what you bring can be very special. So that's what I would recommend. Also to not just, like even if you follow a tutorial, yes, you can always, follow them and put that project up, but it's always good to do something by yourself, at least can be just a simple variation of the project, because chances are if people are recruiting, like they're quite familiar with the demo, like you don't want to be the same as everyone else. So I think bringing a bit of personality always helps, and humor, I think so for me humor is quite important, and like kind of like the connection that you have with people in the team. So like I would always like put something funny or like something about my hobbies or something like that, something that interests you.
So I'm going to give advice that might seem like it's conflicting a little bit, but only a little bit. So I always I would say that when you're building a portfolio site, like, A, good job, thank you so much, please build portfolio sites. You may think that, I can just have a GitHub, but oftentimes the hiring manager, the first couple of people who are going to look at you or digitally look at your employability footprint, if that's not fluffy, they're not necessarily going to be familiar with GitHub. They're not going to necessarily be able to understand what your code is doing. So having a pretty, that doesn't have to be beautiful, website that says, hey, here's who I am. I'm available for hire, just real casual. Like, oh, by the way, if you like the look of this, you should hire me. And then some pieces of work that you've done. And for portfolio sites, just because I talk to a lot of folks putting them together, my advice is very strongly that the perfect is the enemy of the good here. I see a lot of folks who are like, oh, my site's not up. I just really want to make sure it's perfect. I want to make sure that it like shows me as me. I say, great, please put up something ugly by tomorrow. Because you don't want to leave an ugly looking site there. You're going to work on it much more quickly if that site's ugly. So go ahead, if you've got stuff that's mostly finished that looks okay, put it live right now.
Okay, yeah. Don't be a perfectionist. That is, because otherwise you're never gonna get it done. You're right. Yeah. And we have like lots of questions coming in.
Oh heck.
Yes.
Oh no, there's a question about technical coding tests. Okay.
Okay. Let's go one by one. So advice. What kind of advice would you give for a junior role hunt? So I can give you that advice because I just done that 7-8 months ago. So number one for me would be Twitter. Like I don't like social media, but I think Twitter is fantastic for the tech community. That's where you can get to meet coaches, get to hear about job postings. That's where I got to hear about the job posting for the job that I applied for. It's just great to get kind of the exposure. So LinkedIn never really worked for me. What I did was kind of like the reverse search. So I would look for the company I liked, and then even if they didn't have a job opening, I would just send them. Like oftentimes they have nothing is open, but we want to hear from you. Maybe you're the right person. So I would send like an enthusiastic, hey, so I can do this and I'm super cool. Would you like someone super cool? And I did get a couple of projects like that as well. So I like, don't be shy about just emailing people, because people like to hear that you're passionate as well.
Can I give my cheat for emailing somebody?
Do it.
So if you need to ask somebody for a favor, you say, hey, so-and-so works at this company I want to work at. I want to have a chat with them. And like, absolutely. One of my big advice for applying for jobs is wherever you can, go through personal contacts.
Yeah.
And that might seem, I'm going to back up a little bit. Years and years ago, when I was first trying to break into tech, my husband gave me some advice that was really useful and completely garbage. He said, well, I can't do a British accent. He said, well, by the time you apply for a job that's been posted, there's already a bunch of people applying for that. You need to be applying for jobs before they're posted. And I thought, no, that's stupid. How am I supposed to know about jobs before they're posted? Go away, Matt. And looking back, he was right. But I think what he meant to say was, oh, hey, you need to be doing some networking. You need to be talking to people. And then wherever possible, get someone to put you forward for jobs.
Yeah.
So this sounds really weird if you're not in tech already. But oftentimes, if a current employee recommends you or puts you into their hiring pipeline, if you get hired, they'll get a couple hundred or a couple thousand dollars or pounds or euros or regional currency. So it's in their best interest to refer you wherever they can. So asking folks for a chat, say, hey, I really want to work at, where do I want to work? Hey, I really want to work at Glitch. Who do I know, or who do I know who knows somebody at Glitch? Can I try and chat to somebody? Cold emails almost never work great unless you're emailing somebody super nice. Please don't email me.
We will share Jess's email.
But then, so, like when I email somebody for a chat, I'll often say like, hey, do you have time for a quick 10-minute call? Or I would often also ask if folks were local, if they wanted to have coffee. But I guess these days the questions are, do you have time for a quick call?
Yeah.
Or would you be able to answer a few questions via email?
Yeah.
So giving folks that A-B option was something I always liked.
Yeah.
It's really easy to just say no if someone asks you for something.
Yeah.
But if somebody asks you to pick between A and B, no somehow gets harder.
Yeah. Yeah, and right. And also, because you talked about knowing someone and that human connection, I think like meetups were also like a great place for job market, because you would get developers, and developers work in companies, and companies always look for developers. So that used to be also a very, very good avenue, which now is a bit tricky with all the
None
events.
of you better be going to meetups right now, or else.
But yeah, so
or else I'm not going to come and get you.
So I totally agree that knowing, getting like, but again, it's very difficult when you're like, not even so when you're self-studying and you don't have anyone, But that's why, like, I would say go with Twitter, start writing a blog, then you will start, like, even very senior people, like, they still have to learn. So if you can say, oh, like, I just found this really cool trick of, what did I see yesterday? Like, how to convert emojis to favicons. I was like, what? Which is like a very simple thing to do, but like if you share like cool things and what you've learned, like everyone will benefit from that. So yeah, that's also another way of like growing your audience and your network. Right, more questions. How do you prepare? Yeah.
Sorry, we're both reading it. I'm so used to being in charge that I was like, oh.
So let's see this. Another question was, how do you prepare for technical coding tests? Right. So, so when I was looking for my first like proper junior developer gig, I didn't have to do that many interviews because like, so let's say I applied to 15 companies. Of those, I would get 7 answers. Of those, 5 would put me onto like the path of the different stages of interviewing. Of those, maybe, so like the first one is normally the technical interview. And I would say if you get a very generic, like solve this silly algorithm, like the company did not put any effort into making this assignment and like kind of wasting your time, I think that's a bad sign. Again, we talked about how as a junior sometimes you don't have a choice and like you're hungry for any job. But so yeah, I did practice quite a lot of algorithms just in case. I was doing so there's a website called Code Wars where you just go.
I love it, yeah.
Yeah, and it's great because you do, there's like little challenges of like solving little tasks. And what I really like about it is that at the end, there's like all the different answers and like some are really clever, but some are just, like you can see what maybe you can start getting a feeling of what a good answer is, like a mix of clever but also very readable. So that is what really helped me. But otherwise, so the company that I work for now, so Vibio, their interview was like really cool. Like so the technical challenge was like a tiny project, like it was just like a login page that was broken, and he was like, fix it. And I was like, that's great, like because it was like there were many things that you could fix, like you could start with design and like you could do all these things, but like basically, and also like implement a little bit of logic, but it was just less abstract and more concrete and felt like a thing that is actually useful. So that was good, yeah. But otherwise, yeah, I would say Code Wars or what is it called? What's it called?
Oh, exorcism.io.
Yeah, I love that one as well. That one is
fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, there's plenty of websites like that.
So one thing I would add as well is I also hate these. I hate them a lot, and I'm sorry. A lot of folks really like to use them. One thing that's absolutely not fair and absolutely not okay is that the more senior you get, the less often you're asked to do these. I haven't been asked to write. If you get an interview, I guess you won't be in person, but back in the dim, dark days where we went outside all of 2 weeks ago, you would often get interviews that would ask you to like write code on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
I hate those. They fill me with quiet rage. And I guess for the moment, we don't have to do those. So cool. But yeah, once you've worked a couple jobs, it becomes more and more normal for folks to just go, oh, okay, here's the body of their work. They might know what they're doing. We can not make them solve logic puzzles. Sorry, I've got a cat that's trying to climb onto the keyboard and I'm just negotiating over here.
That's completely understandable. Cats are, yes, you have to take them seriously. Negotiate. Whiteboard interviews.
We've got a question coming up that I love.
But are you skipping the one with the self-taught one? Are we going?
Are we?
There's one. How do you deal with people that put you down? Yes.
Yeah, that's the question I love.
Okay, go for it.
So, good news, bad news. you're never going to convince somebody to respect you. You're never going to talk them into respecting you. You can just stop now. You can stop like trying to impress them. You can stop trying to show it, just in case you are. You can stop trying to show up like really chirpy and just be cool. You're never going to convince somebody to respect you. Go in. Whoa! Actually, this person says that your colleagues are constantly telling you your shit. Wow. Okay. My general advice would be to quit your job and get a new job. And also, generic fantasy advice, generic fantasy revenge fantasies here. But I was like, whatever people do in movies. But like, wow, that's miserable. That's not on you. Your colleagues are jerks, and I'm sorry. Really, it's the same kind of advice for I would give folks in a toxic workplace, which are just draw really clear boundaries on the stuff that is the most important to you. Don't invest personally in your work wherever possible. And as soon as you can, find a job with people who aren't terrible, because those people absolutely look terrible. You're never going to, folks who are going to look down on you because you're self-taught versus a computer science background would look down on you for equally made up reasons anyway. I'm the same way you can't negotiate with cats. You can't really talk dumb, smart people into respecting you. I'm sorry.
No, that is completely is an excellent answer, and I think so. Also, as a woman in tech, I've been on the receiving end of very strange observations about generalizing about technical skills of an entire gender, saying that women we're too emotional, we can't handle the logic stuff. Like, I still get those kind of things, which is odd, like you say, but I try to, because I know it's nothing to do with me. Like, they could pick on other things as well. So I try to not take it personally, but it's easier now that I work and I have that validation already. But I think when you are just learning and people keep doubting you or saying like, you need to go to school, computer science, like there's just only one way of doing it and you can't do it. It's very frustrating, but again, that's not you. It's just there's always going to be not nice people around you, and but it's also was going to talk about the issue of the lack of women in technology, and luckily today there are many initiatives like outreachy, like Rails Girls Summer of Code, like meetups, women in tech meetups that are trying to kind of make the playing field more even. But there is definitely a big issue still of lack of diversity, and it also has to do with stereotypes and bias. That as if you're a woman entering a tech career, it's just something that you should be aware of. That there are. Majority of people are very nice and fluffy, but there's still quite a lot of unniceness happening in the tech world. Would you agree, Jess?
Like there's a lot of foolishness out there, and I'm sorry. I am not currently in a position to go out and whoop anybody for it. But we'll talk in a couple months, weeks, I hope. To make it, just to go from people are terrible and there's nothing you can do about it, we've also got a couple little questions about job hunting as a junior dev in the age of great uncertainty. Yeah.
It's a good question.
So, right now is a really weird, scary time, and I would love to be able to get on this live stream? What are the kids calling this? On the stream. I would love to be able to get on the stream and tell you, hey, this is very, very temporary. It's only going to be a couple weeks. It's going to be fine, and everything's going to be fine. But that would be incredibly irresponsible and incredibly ridiculous. Stuff's weird and scary right now, both personally for a lot of people, almost everybody, and professionally for a lot of organizations. So the advice I would really give you in hunting is to be incredibly kind to yourself. If you're in an environment, if you've got some support where you don't have to look incredibly hard every day, space that out, give yourself some time to process things. Things are just hard right now. The same kind of general advice you would give to somebody looking for jobs, which is have a great portfolio start networking online, which we're going to have a question about in a minute. Just really start looking at what kinds of things you can do to sort of be visible in a time where you can't go out and meet people. And that's a big challenge. I'm so sorry that I don't have really specific advice tailored just for you. I'm sorry that I don't have a magic bullet. And I'm sorry that so much of my advice is just me saying it's going to be hard for a little while.
Yeah. It is. But I think on the kind of brighter side, there is, I think, increased flexibility in the kind of how people work, remote work. Also, I think tech jobs are always going to be there, and there's going to be more and more. So I think it's a good investment in any case if you want to start a career in tech. But yeah, like you said, it is odd. It's hard to stay like positive and productive and efficient when you are facing that many uncertainties. But like so someone also said, how do you kind of like approach? How do you build your network? How do you approach people on Twitter? How do you do that? Like, so my advice is like just do it. So I would say first step is like to have an account that looks professional and like you are not just spewing garbage. Like you need to be someone that shares things and kind of makes sense. You don't want to like inspire hate or misinformation or something like that. So that's good. And then like once you have that, so my approach is like just to ask people, and sometimes they don't answer, sometimes they say no. But more often than not, like if you have like a good reason, like or a good question, like I don't like if anyone was to ask me, and people do ask me like how do you like as a junior developer, how do you go about this? What do you do? How do you find coaches? How do you do it? I'm always willing to answer, and there's a lot of people that are very kind and helpful. Also because other people help them. So I feel like there's like this circle of giving because a lot of people like are helped and then they tend to help others. So that would be my advice. How about you, Jess?
I think that's so. Yeah, looking to network online is hard, and everybody's got different sort of things they're comfortable with. Especially on Twitter, like saying hey to somebody. I'd be a little bit careful not to come on too strong. Say, oh, hey, I see you work at such and such a place. I've been really interested in work like that as well. Can I pop you a DM? Is much more casual than just DMing somebody saying like, hey,
Hi.
do you have time for a call or a coffee?
Yeah, no, true.
Sorry, I'm just touching my face with a palm. And the thing is, I'm also a gloriously old lady. So I am not always the most up on online etiquette, but really just like short, brief, polite, and without guilt. If somebody doesn't say something back to you or doesn't engage with you, you might be able to come back and ping them one more time, but after that I might leave them alone. Just sort of in general.
yeah, don't be that person of like, hey, and then you, hi, still waiting. So yes.
Oh heck, although I am sort of chasing somebody at the moment for a thing. In short, do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly. Okay, good advice. Next one.
So it's a question about how to make up if you've been unemployed for a while after uni, or you haven't done it. I think we could take this question more general. It's like if you've been unemployed for a period of time, how do you make up for that? How do you address that?
So I think unemployed or having employment that is completely irrelevant, or like in my case, I was self-employed, but working in a completely different field. So all of these things are kind of like they don't really help your tech job, because they say you need a, I don't know, 1 year experience or this and that. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just a number. So I wouldn't worry about it too much, because and chances are also, like, while you are unemployed, you can still pick up skills. You can still organize meetings, do talks, like do other things that you can always like put forward as well. So when I was applying, like I also applied as like, oh, but also I gave a talk here and here. Also I organized this and that. So there's many things, like besides your technical skills, there are many other things that also make you a valuable candidate. But yeah, I think it's not too bad. Like again, like I quit my job when I was 30, and all of my previous experience has nothing to do with tech. So I came completely new, and yes, some companies like completely like, oh no, we need someone more experienced, we need someone younger, we need someone that is a graduate of like a computer science degree. But there's other companies that are not worried about that at all, and those are normally like the companies that you want to work for.
So I might go ahead and offer a little bit more focused advice. And so the first thing I'd say is, if you've been unemployed for a stretch, have you been doing any unpaid work? Of course, I'm not pushing you to do unpaid work, but have you been doing any contributions to open source projects? Or did you help your sister's shop make a website? I'd go ahead and remind you that unpaid work is still work, and that can go on your CV or resume, or however you say, document showing your skills in the area you're based. Being sure that you're documenting these and saying, hey, I did this, I'm going to put this on my resume. But the thing I would advise is have a sort of narrative in mind. Imagine yourself talking to an employer and say, hey, I took this break, and I think with this long break of us being inside, that we're all going to get to practice this at some point. If we have a career break during the virus issues, we're probably going to have some time where we're off work. For those of us who think this is likely, practicing and just saying like, hey, I did spend some time off during X, Y, and Z, or while this was going on in my life, or what that is going on in my life. And here's what I did during this time. So I'd say like having a reasonable narrative, and even writing it down as a little monologue, and then taking those points and moving them into your cover letters or moving them into your resume, so that you're bringing them into the conversations you're looking to have with hiring managers. It's not perfect. Looking for work after a long break is still hard, and I'm so sorry it's so hard. But try and craft a really compelling narrative. Be ready to come to folks with that narrative. And yeah, good luck. That sounded too fatalistic. Good luck.
Yes, say it. Cool. I think if there's no, because we've been doing it for 50 minutes already, Jess. We said half an hour. Oh. What's happening?
I lie a lot.
No. So I think we're gonna leave it here. So the Twitch stream is going to be online for 2 more weeks, so you can rewatch it at your leisure. Also, Jess, so what is, if people want to know what you're up to, if they want to follow you, what's the best way to find you?
I mean, these days, please online, please don't come to my house. Well, any days, please don't come to my house. I'm at Jesslyn Rose on Twitter, or you could see what I'm doing generally, and my own good but not perfect portfolio site at jessica.tech. If there's ever anything I can do for y'all, just yell at me.
Y'all? Awesome. So thank you, Jess, for your gems of wisdom. This was great. People are already saying that they've learned, which is always fantastic to hear. Thank you all for watching and for your questions. They were really fantastic. And yeah, so look out for our next stream. Thank you.
Yeah, I wish you all the best of luck. I hope things are easier, and I hope they feel easier soon. Bye, everybody.